And so, I'm reviewing all the important films of 2021. That's not my personal estimation, by the way, that's just my codified term for Oscar nominees. I'm trying to be cute, you see, it might work for some people, certainly works for me. Anyway, I'll be throwing one or two of these out every couple of days. Today it's Parallel Mothers, the latest film from Pedro Almodovar, which stars Penélope Cruz and Milena Smith as the title characters. Internationally, the film is streaming on Netflix. If you're in the US, you'll probably have to rent it or go to your local art house, and I'm here to tell you if you should bother. So stick around and find out. There's a lot going on in this movie, which, well, it's an Almodovar movie, so I mean, that's something you come to expect. And I imagine it must be a little perplexing for a modern mainstream audience that expects straightforward Aristotelian narratives with a clear through line. But this is not like that. Or I should say it is, but Almodovar doesn't handle things in a traditional way. Consider, for instance, this film's setup, which involves Penélope Cruz as a photographer taking pictures of a forensic archaeologist played by Israel Elajalde, and so they discuss the excavation of a mass grave in which Cruz's grandfather is potentially located. This is, on its own terms, very intriguing, and you might think you're about to enjoy a socio-political thriller that observes the cruelties of Spain's fascist past through a modern lens. And just maybe, you will feel slightly disappointed, or at the very least, taken aback, some 5 minutes later, when Cruz ends up pregnant and you realize that was just the movie's inciting incident, and the story that will now unfold has nothing really to do with that at all. Or does it? See, I think Almodovar actually does something very clever here. He uses a potential mystery setup to present a story that has very much to do with genetic connection, the reality of lineage, of the bonding between parents and their children, and of how this can breach generations, and how when there is a gap in anyone's lineage, a missing piece, that person always feels that loss, that person will always seek some form of closure. So the film does not entirely ignore its setup, and it comes back to it in the third act, as it should, to give thematic weight to the whole picture. But my point is, even after that initial feeling of, I thought this might be a political thriller, but instead it's a domestic drama about single mothers, that feeling doesn't last very long, because the film still compels your attention. At first, this is on the strength of Penélope Cruz and her commanding screen presence. But it has to also be said that her co-star, Milena Smith, is equally good and just as deserving of attention and high praise. In fact, one could argue that her role, as a wholly naive and unprepared teenage mother, is the more complicated of the two, and she does a terrific job. But let me back up a bit. What I was saying before, the narrative still compels your attention even when you're afraid it's taken a turn for the mundane. And then, because chances are you've been weaned on traditional Aristotelian narratives, you will think the film is setting up an incredibly predictable twist. But then, you realize there's more to it than that, and the M. Night Shyamalan twist you're expecting is merely one more wrinkle in the story. One more wrinkle in this very engaging story that never goes in quite the direction you think it will go as it develops its characters and takes them to dramatic yet logical places of understanding and realization. Now, to be fair, this also means that maybe the movie can't quite build to any sort of definitively satisfying emotional crescendo. Its natural climactic beat, in fact, comes about 25 or so minutes before the end, at which point the movie kind of peters away and settles into resolving its general thematic setup. There's no payoff in the traditional sense, but maybe there doesn't have to be one. In any case, this is a very absorbing drama, and you become fully invested in the lives of these mothers, very engaged by their connection, the bond they grow to have. And then Almodovar leaves you with some food for thought about the importance of closure. And though it may be a bit of clumsy storytelling that he wants to in some way connect this with accountability for Spain's history of fascism, I think there's no question all these themes hold great power and meaning for Almodovar. And that does come across, because ultimately, there is significance between the lines in Parallel Mothers. That's what matters. Hey, I hope you liked this video, and if you did, please give me a like and subscribe to my channel and share the video. There's going to be some cool stuff coming to the channel, so you're going to want to keep track of it, and I hope you like all that stuff too. See ya.